video says, hi everybody, it's me, Mr. Rena Star. I'm back with another vlog. This cold Friday evening, very cold. Brr, that's all I gotta say. So yeah, I just wanted to do a quick video about a Pakistani lady that I've seen a couple of times, and a Pakistani lady that was Muslim and changed religion, and her story is just absolutely fascinating. Just wanted to share it with you, and how, she was introduced to Christ, how she managed to change her religion, and what motivated her. I just think she's such a brave woman. Like, she is such a brave woman, and it was just so nice hearing her story. Let me just see if my tea is ready. I'll just be back. Tea, are you ready? Are you ready to be poured? Teapot? Yes. Pour the teapot. Oh, I missed you. Lovely tea. I missed you. Missed you so much. For those who know, I drink my guava leaf tea. So nice, guys. Like, honestly. Yeah, just drinking some of that. And yeah, I just wanted to do a quick revelation. And went swimming, obviously, and hair's just gotten a bit frizzy. What do you expect? Chlorine does that to you. So yeah, this lady, I don't even know her name, but I've seen her twice. We always meet in McDonald's. It's always McDonald's we meet. She comes to McDonald's. So anyway, she's Pakistani. She obviously doesn't wear this headscarf or anything like that. She's a modern Pakistani. And, I was just surprised about her story, how she's not, just to find out her story was really, really amazing. How she used to be Muslim and then she changed. And she said how the reason why she changed was she was in an abusive marriage and her ex-husband used to hit her. And she was suffering a lot. And one night in a dream, she saw the Bible verse from Isaiah, something about like all her pain and suffering will end soon. She's not a Christian. She never looked at the Bible, but yeah, she saw that scripture in her dream, and then she researched it and said, "Oh, what does it mean?" And then it gave her hope, like for her present situation at the time when she was in an abusive marriage of that horrible ex-husband of hers who used to abuse her, hit her and stuff. So she saw that in her dream, and when she saw the scripture, it related to her present life. And then basically she took ownership of her life and ended the marriage and changed her religion. And she talks about how Jesus guided her, and I just found it so fascinating. And she said to me how one day, while she was into the faith, researching, reading the Bible and stuff like that, oh my God, it's so hot. She looked up in the sky and saw Jesus from his waist up in the sky, and next to him, she saw a village, a beautiful village, like the entrance of a village, including the background and a gate, past the gate, and she saw the revelation in the sky. So she then was involved in the church, and I think she went preaching in her home country in Pakistan. Yeah. So while she was on her way to preach to a particular, because she found out that a particular village in Pakistan was being attacked by the Muslims, Christian family was being attacked by the local Muslims there. So she went there to try and support them. She went on a mission. She was sent by the church. And when she went there, she was about to enter the village. She saw the same image of the village that was on the sky when she was given the when she was given the revelation by Jesus Christ. And then I said to her, "What did Jesus Christ look like?" And then she said, he had long hair, long straight nose, long sort of face. And I said, "What color?" And she said, brown color. But he definitely is not white. He's a person of color. But he had this handsome, long nose, like big nose, long hair, um, like really, really strong eyes, like powerful eyes. And then yeah, so when she was on her way to the village, she saw the same village, same entrance, and that was the village that she was going to go and preach and help this family. She stayed with the family in a proper traditional hut in the middle of Pakistan, like a traditional village made out of wood or something, or grass roof. And she saw it on the revelation. It looked exactly the same. She could see the sheep and the cows. And then when she was entering the village, she started thanking Jesus. She said, "Oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. You showed me that I was going to come here." So, yeah, no, I was just had a really, really interesting conversation with her. And then I explained to her, I said, "What is it about?" Because the Muslims here in London, in the UK, when I look at them, they have there's some sort of dark, I feel like there's some sort of heavy darkness on their eyes. I don't know how to describe it. And I said to her, "What is it like?" I said, "You're clearly Pakistani. I'm looking at you now. You don't have that darkness, obviously, because she's a Christian. But what is it? Like, there is something, like, when you look at them, people that are not Christian, they have a darkness, especially with the Pakistani. It's like a dark thing going on, like, for those who are not." And she just said how she turned Christian. Then her children changed, and her daughter had a revelation to her, and she changed. She got baptized. Her son became Christian, and now he's a preacher. You know, and he's like a typical Pakistani person, but he's and it's just like really, her story is very, very inspiring, and it must be so brave. And then she said how in Pakistan they're not like, because in the UK she's saying that there's a big like Islamic presence here in the UK that isn't there in their country. Like in Pakistan, which I found hard to believe. I always thought Pakistan was like a really heavily Muslim country. She's like, "Nope, people don't go around wearing hijab." She goes, "They only do that here in Europe." So there's some sort of force here in UK, in Europe, that is Islamizing a lot of Muslims, whereas in their country they're very liberal. And she said, "Oh," she even said how like you'll get the haram police, like the Muslim man trying to control Muslim women, telling her she has to wear hijab and stuff. And I explained to her, like, in Somalia, the women never used to wear hijab. In fact, they used to walk around like one arm bare, and that was the fashion, actually, half topless. That's the traditional. But all that tradition has been gone. And then she said how she saw a Somali woman with a baby who was 2 months old wearing a hijab. And she actually asked the mother, she goes, "What would a 2-month-old know about religion for the baby to be wearing a hijab?" And the woman just wouldn't answer. She wouldn't know, because and then she explained to me that a lot of Muslims, they don't like she explained how like the Pakistani Muslims, because the religion is in Arabic, so a lot of them don't really know what the Quran is. They don't really understand it because the original language is in Arabic, and because they don't understand Arabic, they're reciting things in Arabic which they just don't understand. And when you ask them, they don't get it. So I think that's why they don't really know. But then the people who do know the Quran and who do know that Jesus Christ is real, and they know what the real religion is. But because majority of people don't know, they can't they don't understand the text, they become like really pro this religion. And she said it, and she said, you know, they love to debate, like they'll come up to her and they'll debate, and she would give them answers. And because they love to argue and argue and argue. But it's like she's always prepared to give them an answer. And then I said to her, if you were trying to like preach Christianity, which verse would you preach? Which verse would you show them? And then she told me which verse to put, which verse of the Bible, because I've I've had people asking me about Christianity. I've had, you know, but I've never considered myself a preacher. I'm like, oh my God, like, because what I consider a preacher is somebody who's holy, like somebody who's perfect, and I don't consider myself perfect. But then I'm getting people asking me about the religion, and I know the Bible very well. I've read it, but I don't know how to preach. And she's done the whole preaching thing, and I asked her, so and so wants to know something. Which verse should I? And she gave me the most perfect verse. So let me show you. It was. So, oh my God, I'm so tired. Yeah, so it's not dead. So yeah, that's John chapter 3, verse 16. She said, give them that. And that's the best. That's the best. So John chapter 3, verse 16. Got my Bible here, because I then showed her my Bible, and she said the best. She said, oh, this is an old Bible. She goes, oh, it's really small. Because I have a really cute Bible, really nice. So it's John chapter 3, verse 16. Let's go to the glossary. So she recommended that. Right. So John chapter 3, verse 16. Yeah. So she said the best Bible verse to try and introduce people to Christianity who want to know more about it is to provide John chapter 3, verse 16, and it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but will have everlasting life." And I think, yeah, that's a very, very good verse. And so, yeah, so that's so I think if you start off with that, then you know, they can explore. But it's just such a sad thing that people can, you know, it just doesn't harm to read. Like, it's so sad just because you're from a certain religion, you avoid you avoid texts, potential historical texts, you know, that you're missing out on, because the Bible is like a history book, and everybody should be entitled to read the Bible. Just because you're a certain religion doesn't mean you should avoid it. And I think that's really, really sad that there are people out there who are preventing people from reading the Bible. And I think that's really, really sad. And you just expect people to just like obey, um, and live in fear and live in darkness. And this darkness that I see in their faces, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like when I looked at her, it wasn't there because she's clearly a Christian, you know. The darkness has been lifted from her face. That dark tinge thing that they have going on, where they're not free. I know that look, and I must have seen it on social media with one particular famous, Instagrammer who's Egyptian, and the sister's clearly this one. She's clearly Muslim, but she's Egyptian. But her sister, her sister doesn't have that darkness look. And I said, so I must have left the comment. I said, it's obvious your sister's a Christian. And they're like, how do you know? And I said, she looks at peace. And then, like, I don't know, I've got a feeling her sister has Christian vibes. She definitely is Christian. But whereas her sister's clearly Muslim, and she's, promotes it on social media and everything. But you can tell her older sister is a Christian just by her look, the darkness is lifted, like that Muslim look has gone. And and then everyone's like, how did you know? And they're all defending, they're all like, no, that's so silly, and I'm like, but it's true. It's true. Like that's what I see. And then it's funny because she kept quiet. Um, she turned her Jamaican boyfriend Muslim. He used to be Christian. You can tell he was a Christian and he changed. Um, but anyway, that's just what I'll say. People people will find their way in their own time. But in the meantime, people will come to you and ask you questions. And there is no harm in reading the Bible. Read it. Oh my God, it's your right to read the Bible. Like, everybody should be entitled to the Bible. And I think the Bible should not be hidden from anybody. It should not be out of reach. It should be in everyone's household. It should be in everybody's library. I don't believe in hiding knowledge. Um, I've got all sorts of books here. I've even got books about African shamans. Like, it all leads to one thing, God, you know. But obviously, there's nothing more powerful than the Bible. But if you read all the other books, you get to learn about the history. Like, I've got this amazing book which I found somewhere. Travels and explorations in Yoruba land. So this is a book by W.H. Clark. And it was written in 1972 at Ibadan Press, University Press. He's a lecturer in Ibadan. And it just links like paganism and leading to Christianity. Okay, so I'll just give you a verse. So Clark, when he came to explore them, So this is about W.H. Clark and how he went to Nigeria in 1854. The dominant and significant feature of both parts is Clark's reaction to the preconceived, erroneous ideas commonly held in his day in Europe and America about Africa and Africans. Such ideas as Africans being no more than barbarian, savages, uncivilized people, which are found in a number of books written by European travelers and missionaries to Africa. Clark, as he himself confessed, was imbued with those sentimental concerning Africa, which had been so firmly rooted in my childhood. Thus he approached Yoruba land with a picture of such condition of things as is generally supposed to exist in Africa. Vile hovels, filth, nakedness, indolence, and want. But when he left the swampy coastal area, which he did not at all like, to see the city of Abi, Abeokuta and its environs in 1854, he declared so greatly and so happily was I disappointed that I was almost ready, even at this early period, to exclaim, "How poor Africans have been bellied." This experience made him highly suspicious of stereotyped descriptions of African Africans, and with respect to the Yoruba among whom he had come to work, he decided to undertake a thorough and careful study of the people, their country, and their society. After this careful study for 4 years, he came to the conclusion that what he saw in Abeokuta area was not just the result of first impressions. What he saw during his extensive travels in most parts of Yoruba land adds not a little of confirmation of his previous conception formed on seeing Abeokuta, that there are in the interior of Africa countries fair, productive, beautiful, and healthy. Towards the end of his travels, during which he visited, among other places, the mammoth city of Ilorin, he was convinced that the Yoruba people were not the barbarians that Africans were generally believed to be in Europe and America. And for those who would wish to perpetuate the old prejudices, Clark had a short address. Dear sirs, your conclusion is wholly illogical based on a false hypothetical premise. They, the Yoruba, are not barbarous. They cultivate thousands of acres. They eat corn, rice, yams, potatoes, peas, mutton, kid, beef, and butter. They drink milk, ride fine horses, and sleep and drink and rejoice as the rest of mankind. Clark's liberal views were not confined to the standard of living of the Yoruba. It was also extended to the environment in which the people lived. In an age when the popular belief in Europe and America was that white man could hardly survive in Africa, particularly tropical Africa, because of the debilitating climate and general unhealthy environment, Clark's experience in Yoruba land led him to a different conclusion, as he declared from a 4 year observation of the climate and its effects in my own case and in those of others. I feel I should do injustice to the country not to say that it's one of the highly favoured of Providence with many of the elements of health. And if it's not to be enjoyable to a great extent by the white race, the cause is not so much in the peculiarity of the climate as in the natural principles involved in extreme changes. Some of the points he would readily use to illustrate this argument are over exertion. So often the ruin of missionaries and others in tropical climate, excessive work, over anxiety, unnecessary exposure. Clark was that of the opinion that whether among Africans or among white visitors to the Yoruba country, the principal cause of sickness should be attributed to imprudence and the want of such comforts and convenience as necessary to protect the system and the changes of season. Okay. Another aspect of Yoruba culture which Clark showed a deep understanding of religion, although he was a Christian missionary who never looked at other religions, particularly the accused paganism, as inferior to Christianity. Clark, like his co laborer T.J. Bowen, realized that Yoruba religion possessed one of the great virtues of other world religions, that was not only transcendental, but basically monolithic, monotheistic. The most popular belief in Europe and America about African religion was that Africans worshipped idols not as a means to an end, but an end in themselves. It was not seen by most travelers in Africa that Africans really regarded the idols and other objects of worship as intermediaries between them and God. This was why, even as late as the 20th century, Emil Ludwig, a European visitor to Africa, posed a question: how can the untutored African conceive God like his co laborer? Clark recognized the fact that Yoruba did not rely upon any inherent virtue possessed by these dumb idols as able to save, aside from what mystic intercourse and communion they're supposed to have with the divine being. There can be no doubt as to the fact that as the Yoruba people were not Christian, Clark regarded them as heathens, benighted people whose salvation he came to seek by preaching Jesus Christ to them. That he realized that the Yoruba religion was rooted in monotheism, believing in the one supreme being, which was and still is the essence of all renowned religions. What was um, therefore wrong with the religion was the way the people chose to approach this one supreme being. Therefore, if the Yoruba are classified as heathens because they chose idols, nature, objects, ancestors, etc., as intermediaries between them and God instead of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, then their religion seemed to him to be peculiar heathenism, as he stated. The peculiarity of their heathenism is that it places every idol in an entirely subordinate position to the deity who uses them as mediators to reconcile the sin avenging God with man. The account given by them, the Yoruba, of their idols is that God made them in the beginning with their mediatorial position as being suitable to the black man, while another dispensation had been conferred on the white man. In their confession, whatever may be their practice, they acknowledge the impotency of their deities and that they have no saving power, and ascribe to God the creation of all things and all perfection. So I've read another book, and all these African religions, shamans, they all, believe in one God. They may speak different languages, but they all have a very central religion. Even the Native Americans, I've read about that. And these particular religions, they all understand each other, they understand their symbols, and there's always a healer in a tribe who understand each other. And yeah, where is that book? Such an interesting book. And the Yoruba book confirms that. And this guy who studied the Yoruba for 4 years back in the 1890s, you know, described them as a very complex community, more advanced, and not just, heathens. They believed in the one God. They just have a different way of approaching their faith in God. And that's what the Westerners saw when they saw them practicing this old ancient way. They called them heathens because they didn't understand. But if you read the Bible, the Hebrews used to praise God in a similar way and things like that. Yet Clark's understanding of the Yoruba religion was unique in an age when he confessed people of the white race have been so accustomed to associate with the African race everything that is corrupt and debased in morals and religion that it seems almost impossible that there should be any tribes of this people removed any degree from that condition. Clark's exposition on Yoruba religion is valuable in another respect. It helps to weaken the false argument sometimes put forward by some non-Africans that when modern scholars of traditional African religion, most of them ordained ministers of the Christian religion, speak or write that African religion is ultimately based on the belief in one God, they are merely projecting Christian ideas into their studies. In this connection, it is pertinent to point out that at the time when and the places were, William Clark collected his information on Yoruba religion, Christian influence was virtually nil. His liberal attitude notwithstanding, Clark was not entirely free from prejudice against Africans commonly held by people of his race in his age. And by the way, they still do at this time as well. Nothing's changed. In fact, they're worse now. He still approached issues in Yoruba land with the idea that he belonged to the superior white race. Typical. They just can't let that one go, do they? I mean, sometimes like they've repeated a lie so many times that now they actually believe it. And I think that's why they have to keep reminding black people that they're superior. When, if you need to keep reminding people, then you clearly are not superior, and you clearly have, an inferior complexity because you keep repeating it again and again and again and again. And he said it here. So even though he agreed that Yoruba, were advanced civilization, that white supremacy brainwashing was still stuck in this guy's head. Um, the same human nature as among the whites, and that if the two races are not identical, they must bear some such relationship as first cousins. Thus, to him, the Yoruba, like the other Africans, were still just the natives, with all the derogatory implications of that terminology. He even, at the time, referred to the Yoruba as untamed Sudanese. Similarly, in writing about the Yoruba civilization for his American readers, he considered it necessary to do so, not entirely on the merit of that civilization, but on a rather paternalistic basis, namely that Yoruba civilization should not be judged by unfavorable comparisons with the standard or of civilized and enlightened nations of Europe and America. So there again, his bias came through, the sickness of white supremacy. Yet, in view of the preconceived ideas he had about Africa generally before he left America, Clark was so bewildered by what he found in Yoruba land in the mid 19th century that he, like Frobenius, in a similar circumstance in the early 20th century, attempted to look for a non African origin of the Yoruba civilization. Because, they like to give all the good things about Africa, they like to credit non Africans. They love to do that, like separate. They just say, oh, Egypt is not in Africa. Oh, Egypt was built by imaginary white people who came there and built it, not the real Africans, not the sub-Saharans, because that's the sickness of white supremacy. So he was doing that. So he was attributing it to people, their wonderful civilization, to non-Africans, saying, oh, no, they couldn't possibly have made that. No way. Somebody else came. They even attribute aliens. They'd rather attribute aliens than native Africans. Yeah. And then he said, thus he propounded a theory which traced the origin of the Yoruba in particular and of the African race south of the Sahara in general to Canaan. He wrote, they are only the descendants of Canaan, whose several tribes were the possessors of the land of Canaan, and who were living in considerable splendor when it was wrested from them by the conquering Israelites. According to him, it was a result of the Israelite invasion of their country that these Canaanites fled their homes, moved via Egypt, and settled on their country's borders, settlement within it being impossible owing to the size of the existing population, but owing to great increase in the emigrants' population and the desire to avoid Egyptian taxation. They moved southwards across the Sahara to settle in the Bornu area and the surrounding countries, including Yoruba land. Coming from Canaan and passing through Egypt, the migrants must have, according to the theory, been familiar with Israelite and Egyptian civilization. Hence, the similarities in their culture with those of the Israelites and Egyptians. It is pertinent to remark at this stage that Clark's theory is similar in one respect to the theories propounded by some Yorubas themselves. An example is that of Dr. Olumide Lucas, who as late as 1948 asserted that Yoruba religion in particular and their civilization in general had an Egyptian origin. The only and of course important difference was that while Lucas looked at Egyptians as Africans and Yoruba civilization, therefore deriving from people of African descent, Clarke traced the Yoruba in their civilization initially to non-Africans. He was thus lending support to the Hamitic hypothesis popularized since the 30s, but now discredited that civilization in pre-20th century Africa was the work of a white group of people known as Hamites. What absolute nonsense. Yeah, so no wonder they had to remove that. Yeah, such nonsense. So basically, there was a man in London called Thornton Butterworth, Races of Africa, written in 1930, and they made up this huge lie about Hamitics being white. Absolute rubbish. These points, notwithstanding the radically liberal views which Clarke expressed in his work about Yoruba culture, show a far greater understanding of African civilization that can be found in most contemporary works. This makes his work of great value in African historiography. The value of the book goes beyond an appreciation of Yoruba culture. It's an informative source of material on the condition of the Yoruba country as a whole in the mid 19th century. Interesting. Anyway, I just wanted to do a quick video on that, and I really hope you enjoyed my stream.